Tonight, the West Asia is moving closer to dangerous turning point. Every single day, the headlines are becoming more alarming. In fact, missiles are flying across borders. So tonight, we bring you 8 major developments that show how quickly this crisis is changing. From missile attacks to cyber surveillance, from airline warning to political turmoil inside Israel. This is Skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti, and let's start with it. Well, the first story tonight comes from the Gulf, where the military confrontation between Iran and the United States appears to have entered another dangerous phase. Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, better known as the powerful IRGC, has announced what it calls the third wave of Operation Nasser II. According to Iran, this latest operation involved one of its biggest coordinated attacks in recent days. Here, Iran says that it launched a combination of attack drones and ballistic missiles against the US military facilities located in Bahrain and Kuwait. These are not any ordinary military bases. Bahrain hosts the headquarters of the US Navy's 5th Fleet, basically one of America's most important naval command in West Asia. In the meantime, Kuwait is home to several US military installations that support US operations across the Gulf. According to Iran, the targets included military warehouses, weapon storage areas, operational infrastructure, and facilities connected to America's MQ-9 Reaper drones. Iran says that this was retaliation to the recent US strikes on Iranian military positions along the southern coastline. Well, they also warned US not to attack now. Message is clear. If the US launches another strike, Iran says it will respond, and that too in a deadly way. Now, let's talk about the weapons Iran claims that it used. One of them is Kheibar Shaken missile, also known as Kheibar Buster. Now, this particular missile, it has become one of Iran's most talked about ballistic weapons because of its long range and ability to maneuver during the final stage of the flight, making interception much more difficult. While Iran also claims that it launched Zolfaghar ballistic missile. These missiles are designed for precision strike against military targets, and that too hundreds of kilometers away. Alongside them, Iran says that it deployed Shahed attack drones, weapons that have already become familiar in conflict across West Asia and Eastern Europe. Now together, drones and missiles create a difficult challenge for air defense system. The drone can destroy the defensive radars. In the meantime, the missiles arrive seconds later, and that combination is exactly what military planners fear. However, there is only one important point that we need to note. At this stage, these claims have not been independently verified. Neither the US nor Bahrain and not even Kuwait has confirmed the level of damage claimed by Iran here. So while Tehran is projecting confidence here, the actual battlefield picture that remains unclear. But yes, regardless of what really happened on the ground, one thing is becoming increasingly obvious. Neither side appears willing to step back. Each strike is producing another counter-strike. Each warning is producing another threat, and with every passing day, the possibility of a wide regional conflict becomes a little more real here. Because modern wars are no longer fought only with missiles, right? Sometimes the most dangerous weapon fits inside your pocket, and that is your mobile phone. That brings us to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. The question is how smartphone can become a secret weapon in the war. Now imagine this, that you are an American soldier stationed somewhere in the Gulf. You're not posting on social media, you are not sharing your location. You're simply carrying your mobile phones. But somebody hundreds of kilometers away may already know exactly where you are. According to the new investigations, Iran and the groups linked to it may have been trying to track American military personnel using weakness inside regional mobile phone network. No missile, no drone, no satellite, just telecommunication. Well, researchers studying digital surveillance, they say that they noticed something unusual before the latest phase of fighting began. Telecom systems across parts of West Asia reportedly received a large number of requests asking for one simple question: where is your phone? Now, these requests are known as SS7 pings. They don't ring your phone, they don't send you a message. You don't even know they happened. But they can quickly check whether a phone is switched on, whether it is connected to a network, and sometimes where it is located. Cybersecurity researchers believe that thousands of these requests appeared across regional telecoms network. According to experts who are studying the activity, the whole pattern it suggests something far more organized than ordinary network traffic. Some researchers believe that specific phones were being targeted, not random devices, specific individuals. Now, among those believed to be at risk were American military personnel and defense contractors working across Bahrain and other Gulf nations. But you know why Bahrain? Because Bahrain hosts the headquarters of America's Fifth Fleet. Thousands of American military personnel, they operate there every single day. So if somebody can identify where soldiers are staying, which buildings they entered, and which routes they travel, that information becomes extremely valuable during wartime. Experts say that this kind of surveillance, it represents a new battlefield. Instead of binoculars, they use digital signals. Instead of following people physically, they follow their smartphones. Researchers also believe that at least some of the tracking requests carry digital fingerprints that are linked to an Iranian telecom operator. Now, while that does not itself prove direct state involvement, cybersecurity experts say that the pattern deserves serious attention here. And yes, another concern involves something millions of people never think about: advertising data. Well, every smartphone carries advertising identifier used by apps and companies to deliver personalized advertisement, right? But experts warn that the same information can sometimes reveal moment of the pattern, where somebody lives, where they can travel, where they often visit, and who they spend time with. Well, here lawmakers in Washington now fear that commercial data originally created for advertising could become useful intelligence during wartime. Some American politicians are demanding strict laws now. They argue that technology companies should no longer be allowed to sell sensitive location information that could put military personnel at risk. One US lawmaker warned that if America's enemies continue exploiting the commercial location data, the consequences could be catastrophic. While the US military says it is aware of these threats, American Command Center has confirmed that it received intelligence reports warning about a possible attempt to exploit commercial location data. In the meantime, officers they say that additional security measures have been introduced to protect the American forces in the region. And yes, at the very same time, US officials insist that there is no evidence that digital tracking played a major role in recent attacks. But still, the warning is impossible to ignore. Wars are changing, the battlefield is changing. Today's conflicts are fought not only with missiles or fighter jets, but also with algorithms, mobile network, data brokers, and invisible digital footprint. Well, the smartphone in your hand may be far more powerful and far more valuable than you can ever imagine. Now, to our third story tonight. Well, the conflict is no longer being fought only on military bases or inside government buildings. Now, the warning is reaching commercial airlines, and that, ladies and gentlemen, changes everything. Can you imagine that you are sitting inside a passenger aircraft flying over West Asia? You are thinking about your destination, but suddenly questions begin to emerge. Is the airspace ahead completely safe or not? Could the conflict below affect civilian flights? Well, these are exactly the concern being raised after Yemen's Houthi movement issued a fresh warning following reports of Saudi strike on Sanaa's international airport. Now, according to reports, the latest tension began after an aircraft belonging to Iran's Mahan Air landed in Houthi-controlled Sanaa. Reports claim the plane was carrying senior Houthi leaders who were returning from Iran. Soon after, reports emerged of a strike targeting Sanaa's international airport, further increasing tension in the region. Now the Houthis have warned international airlines about using Saudi Arabian airspace, raising fear that aviation could become caught in the middle of an already dangerous conflict. Now, it's very important to understand why this matters. The skies over West Asia are among the busiest in the world. Every day, hundreds of international flights connect They connect Asia to Europe to Africa and the Gulf through these air corridors. If airlines begin avoiding parts of the region, the impact could spread far beyond the battlefield. Flights may have to take longer route. Journey time it could increase. Airline can burn more and more fuel. Operating costs could rise, and eventually passengers around the globe may end up paying higher ticket prices. This is not the very first time though when airlines have faced such a concern. In recent years, conflict in different parts of West Asia have forced several international carriers to reroute flights whenever the security risks increases. Every airline constantly monitors military deployments before deciding whether a particular air corridor remains safe or not. Even a single warning from an armed group, it is taken seriously because aviation authorities know that civilian aircraft must never become part of a military confrontation. Well, at the moment, the Houthis' warning, it has added another layer of uncertainty. Whether airlines decide to change their flight path, that remains to be seen. But the bigger message is becoming impossible to ignore. Well, the conflict is expanding. It is no longer affecting only soldiers. It is the beginning to affect travelers, businesses, and global transportation. And yes, as every new front opens, another major question begins to worry military planners. What happens if Iran starts using one of its most advanced missiles? That brings us to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. The fourth story tonight focuses on just one question that military experts around the globe are asking. What happens if Iran begins using its most advanced missile arsenal? Yes, according to state media of Iran and statements from the IRGC, Iran has launched another wave of missile strikes targeting American bases and allied facilities across the Gulf. Iran claims this latest operation included several of its best-known missile systems. Among them are Fattah hypersonic missile, the Kheibar ballistic missile, the Fattah 110, and Zolfaghar ballistic missile. These names may sound technical to you, but behind every name is a weapon designed with a specific military purpose. So let's begin with Fattah missile here. Iran describes this Fattah missile as a hypersonic weapon capable of traveling at extremely high speed while changing direction during flight. Well, if such a missile performs as claimed, well, it can become much harder for traditional missile defense system to intercept. Military experts across the globe continue to study these claims though, while independent assessment of the missile's real battlefield performance that remains limited. And then comes Kheibar missile. Iran says that this missile has improved accuracy and it is capable of striking targets deep inside enemy territory. Its solid fuel design allows it to be prepared for launch much faster than older missile systems. In the meantime, Fattah 110, it is considered one of Iran's most widely deployed short-range ballistic missiles. It has been upgraded several times over the years and it is designed to strike military infrastructure with greater precision. In the end, we have Zolfaghar missile, another weapon that Iran claims it can hit targets hundreds of kilometers away, and that too with high accuracy. When these missile systems are discussed together, they do demonstrate how Iran has spent maybe years building a large and diverse missile program despite international sanctions and growing military pressure. Iran believes that missiles provide one of the strongest forms of deterrence. Instead of relying on expensive air forces, well, Tehran has invested heavily in long-range missile technology, and that particular strategy has become one of the most defining features of Iran's military doctrine. However, there is another important part here. Many of Iran's latest ballistic claims have not been independently verified. Iranian media has reported successful strikes against American military assets, but the US officers, they have not really confirmed many of these claims. Independent verification remains limited because of the ongoing conflict and the restricted access to military sites. But still, whether every reported strike succeeded or not, the message being sent that is unmistakable. Iran wants to demonstrate that it possesses multiple missile options capable of targeting military installations across the region. In the meantime, for the US and its allies, This creates a constant challenge. Every military base that must remain prepared, every radar system must stay alert, every air defense battery must be ready because in modern warfare, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes a missile launched hundreds of kilometers away reaches its target in just a matter of minutes. And yes, as missiles dominate the headlines tonight, another confrontation is unfolding quietly above the Gulf. And this time the focus is not on missiles. Well, it is an American surveillance drone. That's right. Now to our fifth story tonight. The battlefield is no longer limited to missile striking the military bases. Now the focus has shifted to the skies over the Persian Gulf, where Iran claims it has achieved another major military success. Ladies and gentlemen, according to Iranian state television, the country's air defense system intercepted and shot down an American surveillance drone near the south port of city of Bandar Abbas. Iranian media even aired footage that it claimed showed the wreckage of the drone after crash to the ground. Well, the images quickly spread across television channels and social media, with Iran presenting the whole incident as a proof that its air defense network remains fully operational despite recent American military operations here. But you know what? The timing of this claim, it is significant. It comes just after the United States Central Command, better known as CENTCOM, announced that American forces had carried out a military operation lasting nearly 5 hours. According to CENTCOM, US forces targeted several Iranian military sites located in Bushehr, Chabahar, Jask, and Bandar Abbas. American officers said that these strikes were aimed at reducing Iran's ability to threaten the international shipping passing through the Strait of Hormuz, basically one of the world's most important maritime trade routes. However, Iran is presenting a very different picture here. Instead of focusing on American operations, Iranian officials are highlighting what they describe as a successful interception of a US surveillance aircraft. Now, if Iran's claims that's actually true, then it would send a strong signal that Iranian air defense systems remain capable of detecting and engaging advanced American platforms even during a time of heightened military pressure. However, there is one important point that viewers should keep in mind here. The alleged drone shoot down, it has not been independently verified. The US has not really confirmed losing a surveillance drone, and independent observers, they have not been able to verify the footage aired by the Iranian television. Now, as with many developments in an active war, both the ends are presenting their own narrative, while the complete picture remains difficult to establish. Well, even so, the incident reflects how rapidly this confrontation is actually expanding. Only a short time ago, the focus was on missile exchanges. And now the surveillance aircraft, intelligence gathering, and air defense system are becoming part of the same conflict. Military experts often describe drones as an eye of modern armies. They collect intelligence, they monitor troop movement, and they help commanders make battlefield decisions without risking pilots' life. And that is why any claim involving the loss of such an aircraft, it immediately attracts global attention. Now, whether this particular drone, it was actually brought down or not, one thing becomes increasingly clear here. The skies above the Gulf, they are becoming more crowded, more heavily monitored, and far more dangerous than ever before. And yes, while military tensions continue at the sea and in the air, the conflict is now beginning to create unexpected problems from the battlefield. And this time, it is at Israel's busiest international airport. Our sixth story tonight shows how even military logistics can begin affecting the lives of ordinary travelers. Well, fresh concerns have emerged over operations at Israel's Ben Gurion airport after reports suggest that growing American military activity is placing a lot of pressure on civilian aviation. According to reports from Israeli media outlet N12, the US military has suspected the planned departure of its one of the most talked about refueling aircraft that is currently stationed at the airport. At the very same time, reports say that 4 additional American tankers aircraft have also arrived there, occupying valuable parking space normally that is used for civilian aircraft. These aircrafts are not fighter jets. They are aerial refueling tankers. Their role is to refuel military aircraft while they are still flying, allowing the fighter jets and bombers to remain in the air for much longer period and operate over greater distances without returning to the base. And as military operations across the region continue, such aircrafts have become increasingly important for supporting long-range missions. But yes, their presence it is now creating practical challenges at one of Israel's busiest airports. According to the Israel Airport Authority, if the current situation continues far beyond maybe July 23rd, nearly 50,000 passenger bookings could be affected by the end of this month. Airport officials fear that reduced parking capacity for civilian aircraft could lead to scheduling difficulties, operational delays, and possible disruption for thousands of travelers. Now, in the meantime, Israeli authorities are now reportedly examining possible solutions. One proposal under discussion involves relocating the American military aircraft from Ben Gurion Airport to nearby Israeli Air Force Base, basically freeing up space for commercial operations. According to reports, the matter it has already reached the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Netanyahu, as his officers try to balance military requirements with the need of civilian aviation. The whole situation it highlights an important reality about modern conflict here. Well, the impact is not always visible on the battlefield. Sometimes it appears inside airports. Sometimes it affects flight schedules. Sometimes it changes travel plans for thousands of ordinary people who have nothing to do with the conflict itself. And as military deployment increases across the region, civilian infrastructure often comes under additional pressure, creating a lot of challenge that extend well beyond defense and security. And yes, while the US and Iran continue to confront each other militarily, another global power is now stepping into the conversation. A country that depends heavily on one of the world's most important shipping routes. And that country, ladies and gentlemen, is China. Let's move to our seventh story tonight. As the military confrontation between the US and Iran continues to escalate, another major global power has entered the conversation. This time it is China. That's right, Beijing has issued a strong warning as tension around the Strait of Hormuz continue to rise, making it clear that this is not just a regional issue anymore. According to Chinese officials, the Strait of Hormuz must remain open, safe, and accessible for international commercial shipping. China has urged all the sides to avoid further military escalation and restore stability in one of the world's most strategically important waterways. But you know why China is so concerned here? Because the Strait of Hormuz, that is one of the most important energy corridor on the planet. Nearly 1/4 of the world's seaborne oil passes through this narrow stretch of water every single day. For China, the stakes are even higher. Around 40% of China's imported oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz before reaching the Chinese port. So basically, any disruption in this route, it could directly affect China's energy security, industry, and economic growth. Well, the latest concern comes as Iran tightens shipping control in the Gulf and questions that continue over transit approval, inspection, and possible fees for vessels that are passing through the region. Although commercial shipping that is still moving, uncertainty has increased sharply. Every new military exchange between Iran and the US, it is being closely watched by shipping companies, insurance firms, and global energy market. Well, for China, this is much more than about diplomacy. It's about protecting supply chain that keeps their factory running, businesses operating, and their energy flowing into the country. A prolonged disruption in Strait of Hormuz, it could push global oil higher, increasing transportation costs and create fresh inflammatory pressure basically in the economies around the globe. And that is why Beijing is urging to restrain instead of confrontation. Chinese officials say that all nations must avoid actions that could further destabilize the region. They believe keeping the Hormuz open that is essential not only for West Asia but for global economy. Now, whether these diplomatic appeals they will reduce tension, that remains unclear. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear here. The conflict is no longer being watched only by countries directly involved. It is now attracting the attention of world's biggest economies because what happens in the Gulf, it can affect fuel prices, shipping costs, financial market across continents. And yes, While global powers are watching events unfold outside the region, another crisis is unfolding inside Israel itself. And this one is not about missiles or military bases. It's about politics, it's about public anger and growing division within the country. And that brings us to our final story tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Our final story tonight takes us inside Israel's parliament, where their Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, is facing one of the biggest political challenges of his current term. While Israel continues dealing with serious security threat far beyond its border, a different battle is unfolding inside the country's political system. This time, the issue is military service and a deeply controversial law involving Israel's ultra-Orthodox community, also known as Haredim. In a closely watched vote, Netanyahu's government narrowly secured approval in Knesset by a margin of 58 votes to 54. The vote allows the government to temporarily freeze the arrest and prosecution of ultra-Orthodox draft invaders, basically a decision that has triggered intense political debate across Israel. The scene inside parliament, it quickly turned dramatic. Opposition lawmakers, they shouted slogans across the chamber. Cries of shame, it echoed through the hall. Some lawmakers also shouted, "Leave now," as tension continued to rise. Now, reports say that Mr. Netanyahu left the chamber before the final vote was completed, adding even more political attention to an already heated debate. And at the center of the controversy is Israel's long-running dispute over military service. Most Israeli citizens, they are required to serve in the country's armed forces. However, for many years, large sections of the ultra-Orthodox community have received exemptions to continue religious studies instead of joining the military. Here, supporters of the new legislation, they argue that it provides temporary legal protection while a broader solution is discussed. However, critics say that the policy creates unequal treatment at a time when Israel's military is facing a lot of operational pressure. Well, the debate has become even more sensitive because senior officers within Israel's defense forces, they have repeatedly warned about growing manpower shortage. As security challenges continue on multiple fronts, military leaders say that additional personnel are becoming increasingly important now. Well, for many Israelis, the issue is no longer only about religion or politics. It's about a question of fairness. Many families ask why some young people are required to serve while others continue receiving exemptions here. Well, the disagreement has now become one of the biggest domestic political challenges facing Mr. Netanyahu's government. It also highlights how internal division, it can become even sharper during periods of national security crisis. And yes, while missiles continue flying across West Asia and diplomatic tension rise between major powers, governments are also being forced to deal with their own political battle. And that is why this conflict is unlike many others. It is being fought on multiple fronts at the same time. On the battlefield, inside cyberspace, across commercial shipping routes, at international airport, inside parliaments, and even through the smartphones that people carry every day. As always, the situation across West Asia is changing rapidly, and many of the claims made by different sides in the conflict remain contested and they have not been independently verified. We will continue to follow every major development and bring you the facts, the background, and global impact in simple and easy way. Well, that's all for tonight's Skyline, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Driti and I will see you in the next episode.